Good afternoon or good morning, depending on where in the world you are. We're here to deliver a very different webinar, I guess, video episode to what we'd normally do. And Danielle and I met each other probably about 6 months ago now, right? We've been chatting for some time.
Mhm.
And one thing that we very much aligned on, we realized both our business as something that we help people with at its core is helping business owners like you get back to doing more of the things that you enjoy doing. Because let's be honest, a lot of marketing isn't fun. Like a lot of business jobs that you end up having to do that you don't realize are there in the first place, like accounting and bookkeeping and all the rest of the HR type stuff and contracts and proposals. They're not what you set out business for. And hands on heart, there's marketing. Sales, I think most people know that's part of the bag. They might not like it. But marketing, we can just do that later. And that is a big problem for a lot of business owners. And so by the end of today's session, we want you to have a clear idea of what marketing burnout is, what it looks like and what you can do to avoid it. But we also want to give you some strategies for your marketing that are bite-sized, that are simple, that you can take away, implement yourself. And it's not going to take up all the time in the week because like you, we run our own businesses. And I'd do anything but work on my own marketing by choice. I procrastinate on my own marketing, like all good marketers. And so we want to give you some practical tips and share some of the tools that we use as well, whether that's frameworks, whether it's ideas, whether it's actual platforms that you can use to streamline that content creation, because I know a lot of business owners out there that just don't even know where to start at all. So before we get into all of that, Danielle, I'll hand over to you. I'll let you give a little bit of a brief background on why people should care what you have to say.
Well, good morning or afternoon, everyone, wherever you are calling in from. I'm a marketing strategist. And so what that means is that I help people untangle this marketing web that exists in the world. I like to joke about marketing is kind of that thing in the corner of the room that you side eye, but you don't want to make eye contact with, right? You know you need to do it. And it is the thing that perpetually gets moved to, oh, didn't get to it today. We'll put it on tomorrow's to-do list. And a week later, here we are. And you're no longer saying create January content. You now need to say create February content in that to-do list. And here's the thing, it doesn't have to be that way, right? Marketing does not have to be that thing that you'll avoid making eye contact with. I think one of the things that the reason that comes about is that there's not an alignment with what your marketing strategies are, with what you have the bandwidth and the capacity to do in your own business. And they're just not like whatever it is that you're trying isn't all talking to each other. So that is where I come in as a marketing strategist to help you figure out the right strategy that works for you and your business and your bandwidth and your budget. All of those are really key factors. That is the lane of marketing that I hang out in, is that zoomed out approach and making the right choices.
And I think anybody who knows me, and I'll explain who I am in a second, but anybody who knows me will instantly be able to see how that aligns with everything that I've built my business around also, right? Not a marketer by trade, right? I am a business owner, just like all of you out there watching this. I've took the leap out of corporate world. I was fortunate enough to land in a startup and was straight away tasked with being pretty much the entire sales and marketing team single-handedly at one point. It narrowed down to the sales side of things, but I've always had fascination with how marketing directly works with sales. And rather than being separate teams and separate identities, it's the same thing. It's two sides of the same coin, and one complements the other very much. So I was always that annoying guy that wanted to dabble in the marketing side of things. And when we got marketers, they used to get very frustrated with me because I wanted everything now and I wanted it my way and I didn't want to do it their way and I didn't want to follow the brand guidelines. I just knew what worked. Fast forward a couple of years and I eventually built processes up that meant I could do that all really efficiently for people with video. And video is the thing for me that makes marketing really, really efficient, really, really effective, and it connects your audience on an emotional level. So I built a business that repurposes video. We're a service agency, and we work with people to free up your time from creating content to get you back to running the business, right? So downloading your brain as efficiently as possible and maximizing the impact of that through repurposing that content in very smart ways that help make the life of people like Danielle very, very easy, because all of a sudden they're armed with a library of content that they can use to create a bee swarm effect and to get you noticed and help you get out there in front of your audience, be top of mind, which is, let's be honest, the whole point of marketing at the top end of the funnel. So that's me. That's me in a nutshell. And as I'll freely hold my hand up and say, as I said at the beginning, I'll do anything but my own marketing most of the time. When I do get into it, I enjoy it and it's efficient and it's effective, but there's enough of a mental hurdle there for me to start with, let alone if I didn't have an efficient and effective way of creating it in the first place. So I can only imagine how other people feel looking at their marketing stack and going, yep, I need to create a blog this week because I said I would. I need to create 5 social media posts because I said I would. I need to write something from the business page. I need to update the website. I need to do all of these googly and wordy SEO things that I've been told by someone I need to do. And I watched a video on YouTube and I need to do X, Y, and Z. And before you know it, you just feel tired thinking about marketing. And I like what you said, Danielle, around we start with how much time do you have to put into your marketing? And I think that's a great approach for people to take. And it's not the answer that people expect to hear. They expect to be told, well, you need to spend far more time and money on your marketing. You need to be doing X, Y, and Z. And if you're not doing it, you're not prioritizing your business. But actually there is a balance, right? So tell me, what's the process you take when you start working with a new client to identify realistically how much time they should be spending on their marketing assets?
Yeah. So before I go into that approach, I just want to validate, Paul, because you touched on this, that I've got to create the 5 posts that I said I would. Or the other thing that I hear is, I heard this on a podcast that I should be doing blah, blah, blah. Or I read it in a book, or I signed up for a course and I did part of it. And what I hear from business owners is that so they heard 30 minutes of a podcast and they picked one juicy nugget, which is very valuable. Okay. I cannot invalidate. And then they took this one page of a book that was so powerful and just completely changed how they're thinking about some way of showing up in their business. Also really fantastic. But is that page from the book talking to that juicy nugget from a podcast? Not always, right? Not always is it part of the same strategy. Can we make it part of a strategy? Absolutely. But it takes a little bit of effort to weave them all together. Sometimes I feel like I'm playing Tetris a little bit. How do we make that work? And so I just want to say to everyone who is hanging out with us today, you have heard all kinds of great advice, or read it, or wherever you get your content. You've gotten great advice. And if you feel like you have tried all of those pieces of advice and they're not working, that's frustrating. Like that's where you hit the edge of burnout, right? Where you're just like, I'm trying all the things. I listened to this, I read this, they're the expert in the field, I'm doing what they said, and it's not working. And really, it's not that they're not working, it's that they're not working together. And so that's where the strategy comes in. So when I start working with a client, we get a really good assessment of where they are, right? We can't figure out where we want to go without knowing where we are and where we've been. So sometimes it's a look back of what has worked in the past. Because I think sometimes there's that shiny object syndrome where it's like, oh, this is the new thing, or you've got to be doing this one trending topic or sound or whatever the case is. But there's a lot of value and wisdom in what we have done and what's worked before. So we look back, we look at where we are, we look at where we want to go. And then we figure out, where are the people that you're trying to reach? So I've had more client than one come to me and say, my granddaughter said I need to be on TikTok and I need your help with it. Well, if you've never been on TikTok before and you really don't even spend a whole lot of time on social media, TikTok, Instagram may not be the place to start, right? We need to do what you're comfortable with. I've had people asking about TikTok. And remember when TikTok was all just about dances? There were some businesses, some cutting edge businesses that were really starting to make a name from an influencer perspective in TikTok with those educational videos and things, but they were on the fringe. And so some people, so like the grandkids were seeing this fringe stuff happening. The parents and grandparents only were seeing these silly dances that were happening. So they're like, hey, My granddaughter said I got to be on TikTok and I don't want to do crazy dances. I'm like, well, if crazy dances are not part of this strategy to grow your business, then no, you don't need to be on TikTok, nor do you need to be doing crazy dances. So we get a pulse of where the people are that you're trying to reach. Where are they hanging out? May not be on TikTok, may not be on Instagram, may not be on LinkedIn, but where are they? And then we figure out what your bandwidth is, right? So are you the only person working in marketing in your business? Okay, how do we make this the most efficient method that we possibly can for you? How do we take, I think of it, I know, Paul, you think of it as a triangle where there's a tip on top, right? And I think of it in the opposite direction. We both are accomplishing, working to the same place. But essentially, I like to think about what can we do that's big at the top that we can start to chunk down smaller and smaller and smaller, and it comes and plays across all of the pieces. So should you be posting a blog post every week? You could. We don't want to get into a should show. Okay. That's what we hear in the world.
Don't should all over yourself. Yeah.
Don't should all over yourself. Is that an effective tactic to post a blog every week? It can be, yes. Is posting 4 times a day on Facebook an effective tactic? It can be, yes. And so that is really the deep part of what we do when I sit down and work with clients, is figure out, what do you have the time for? What are your people looking for? If let's say you're a plumber, for instance, in a service business like that, you don't need to be posting 4 times a day. People don't necessarily need to hear from their plumber 4 times a day on social media. People are getting on social media to be entertained. Now, if you are a really, really funny plumber, and that is something that you can go along with and you can maintain day after day, totally cool. Show up and be the funny plumber so that people remember you and call you. But if that is just not your jam, don't do it. We can find a way to make this work. Or maybe you're looking at emails in a different way. So really, really, really looking at personality, time, budget, bandwidth, what's worked for you before.
And be realistic, right? Like this.
Oh, yes.
One of the core tenets that you show up with is sustainable marketing. And I don't mean from an ecological standpoint. I mean from, you need to be able to repeat this performance over and over again. So one, you need to be passionate about it and care, whatever your marketing strategy is going to be. Don't try and create content for the audience that you don't care about. You've got to care about it too, right? If it's not there, they will be able to tell. It won't come across well. You'll fail and you'll stop doing it. But it also needs to be done in a way that is manageable for you. So if you've got, right, for the sake of the argument, you might have 2 hours a week to dedicate to marketing, right? It's not a lot, but it's a starting point and it's realistic. And maybe if you just do that 2 hours work with marketing that is effective, that is lined up, that connects the dots, that has a strategy behind it, and you start to see results from that, who knows? Maybe you'll want to spend 3 hours on your marketing next month. Maybe, because it won't feel as much of a chore because you're actually seeing results from it in the short term, the mid-term, and the long term. The problem I find with people traditionally is that marketing tends to not yield results immediately. Marketing takes time to work, and often the indicators are lagging. So you don't see the results until they've already started to happen. So you've got to have faith in your marketing. You've got to keep at it. But the point is, at some point, you want to have an orchard that bears fruit, and you want to be able to pick that fruit for yourself. And you want to find the low-hanging fruit first, and then you wait for the rest. If you never plant your orchard, you'll never pick the fruit. So get that orchard planted, right? But make sure you plant in the right food that your clients want to eat, your customers want to eat, that you care about growing that fruit, right? There's going to be loads of like pineapple farmers and stuff commenting and going, oh, this is great, I love it. Marketing for pineapple. But in a serious note, it's got to be done in a way where you feel as though your effort is less than the outputs. So you get more out than you put in. And if it doesn't feel like that, you're not going to want to do it. So it's a little bit about doing the right things. It's also about choosing some things that are the 20% that deliver the 80%. We all know about the 80-20 rule, right? Like, what is the 20% you could be spending your time on to start with? before you worry about all the other things that are numerous and many, and probably employ a full-time marketing team to do some of them, even as a small business. But what's the things that really drive the engagement and recognition for you as a business? And that's why I'm a big believer, and we talk about that pyramid, Danielle. That's why I'm a big believer in having my pyramid starts like this, because for me, there's one activity to do at the very top of that pyramid. And Danielle has that upside down because that activity, whilst it's not a huge activity, it drives a huge amount of value for you. So I totally get where she comes from with that. But video should be at the top of that pyramid. Video's at the top of that pyramid because in the current day and age, video is the content that all other content can roll down from. So I talk to people who like writing. They love writing articles. That's their main thing they want to do. I'm going to write my blog this week. I need to write my blog this week. I know it doesn't drive all the great views, but I'm going to write it anyway. I just need to figure out what to write it about. And I have a little chuckle to myself when they say that, because some people are natural writers, and I've got nothing against this. They love writing and will knock an article out in less than the time it takes me to produce any video content, right? They are fantastic at what they do. Got no problem with that. But for the vast majority of us, having a conversation on camera, a bit like this, or even just me on my own, whilst it feels a bit awkward in the first 5 minutes, after that, really start to get into detail and your brain starts to flow and it starts to fire things at you that you hadn't really thought of beforehand. And you start to go off on a few different tangents. Not all the tangents are relevant, but most of them will be. And by the time you get to the end of just 20 minutes, you've got a piece of content there that might cover a couple of different talking points, different themes, several talking points within each of those themes. And if you can repurpose that content into lots of other forms of saying the same thing, then you've got a month's worth, maybe 6 weeks, maybe 2 months worth of content there where you've spent 20 minutes on creating it. And your creative juices are kept intact for dealing with your customers, because that's the important thing. And for me, that is just such an efficient, effective process. Video turns into audio and video. The audio turns into words, transcription. Everybody's got it these days. It's all over the place. Not hard to find. You can get it for free. Transcription turns into short form articles, long form articles, social media posts, quotes, images, quotes, animations. The video turns into clips, turns into short clips, it turns into long clips. Got a full length video there with bits chopped out of it that make it a bit more effective and concise. And before you know it, you've got so much content, you don't even know what to use, which is a different problem altogether, but an altogether nicer one. I can promise you it's an altogether nicer one. So, Danielle, what's your experience with working along those lines? Is video, in your mind, why is video the most effective way of communicating with your audience?
Well, Paul, I think you articulated it well. One of the things that I find, you mentioned consistency, right? So we'll talk for a second about feeding the algorithm monster. The algorithm monster needs consistency, right? And I think we personally need consistency as well. Because if we say we're going to post every day or 5 days a week on social or create some sort of a content, and every day that timer or that ding or that spot on the to-do list comes up and you open up the platform or your Google Doc or whatever it is, and that cursor is just flashing at you. And you're like, what am I going to say? And one of three things happens. First thing that happens is the doorbell rings, the dog barks, your stomach growls something, and you're like, oh, can't do this right now. Got to go take care of that. Second thing that happens is you turn into slimy, salesy Steve, right? Which is who we're all trying to avoid in the first place. Nobody wants, but I think part of the reason people get nervous with marketing and sales is like, they don't want to be a slimy salesman. Here's how slimy salesman mode gets turned on. That happens when you're not invited into someone's conversation or into their life to have this, to talk about whatever it is that you're talking about. If you just start like yelling at them or blasting at them or trying to sell to them without any relationship or context or invitation, that is slimy sales. So I think when we sit down and think about that flashing cursor, all we're trying to do is get business, right? Ultimately, that's what we're trying to do. We do have to, it is a long game, like you said. We have to build a relationship first. And so when we sit down and see that flashing cursor, really what we should be thinking about is, how can I develop a relationship with the people on the other side of this post or the other side of this content? And how can I provide value? That's how I build the relationship, is by providing value. Instead of looking at that flashing cursor, like, I want that flashing cursor to turn into a dollar sign very, very soon. People feel that on the other side. So when we can be really consistent in showing up to provide value and to build that relationship, it changes our relationship with our marketing and sales. Now, whether our relationship has changed or not, we all are strapped for time. And that is one of the reasons that I love video and how much of a powerful tool it can be, because of whichever way you look at the triangle. We're going to have to like arm wrestle for this or something. Whose triangle we're going to talk about. But really, we're saying the same thing. I'm thinking about it from a time and effort perspective. And Paul is thinking about it from like how of a small investment it is from a, and the effect that comes from that. One of the things too that I find is, if you are sitting down every single day with the 5 or 7 minutes blocked off, your brain, it takes time. I don't know what the latest psychology data is. It takes time for your brain to transition into a new activity. If you are trying to sit down every single day and turn that switch on to a social or content perspective, it's difficult and your brain is fragmented. And so when you can sit down, like Paul is saying, and record 20 minutes of a video, you're in the zone. You've got that mindset on. You're not fragmenting your brain. You do some deep breathing exercises or change clothes or whatever you're doing for the video. You are there in that zone for 20 minutes and you're just cranking it out and putting that value into a video. I think one of the challenges people have too is thinking about, like, what am I going to say? What do I talk about? And that, is this valuable? Is this helpful? Question is it's really critical for when you sit down and think about turning the camera on, because there are a lot of reasons when you have a camera flashing at you or you're looking at yourself on your camera, a lot of reasons to want to turn and run out the other run the other way. Right. And we can certainly talk about that from like a technical perspective, some of the ways that I work with my clients to overcome that fear. But consistency is so key. And you're absolutely right. You could sit down for 20 minutes, y'all, 20 minutes, and record a video and truly have content for weeks, if not a couple of months. I mean, it's just so powerful and so much better than that flashing cursor at you every single day.
Yeah. And I think it also gives you the ability to do it, create the content, create posts at a time when you're at your most creative, because that's something else people try and do, is to try and block time off to write these things at a time when they know their audience wants to see it. So 8 a.m. in the morning, before everybody starts work, I know that's when everybody's on LinkedIn. That's where I'm going to write my post. Oh, it's really hard to write at 8 o'clock in the morning because your brain's just absorbing the coffee still, right? Instead of doing it then, why don't you do it on a Thursday afternoon when you've had a few wins for the week and you're feeling much better about things, and you've had your dinner and you've had a coffee and right, now I'm ready to go. Whatever that looks like, whenever that works for you. For some people, it's a night when the kids have gone to bed. I've done that before. Just sitting right, peace and quiet. I'm switched on to this. I feel like writing my content now. And you made a great point about consistency. And I tell people to write posts or create content for posts a minimum of 3 times a week. Not because I care about the algorithm, because I don't. I'm a big fan of rebelling against the algorithm. Use it where you can, but ignore it because it will become a distraction. But when you create content 3 times a week, you start to form a habit. I know I have 3 posts I need to write. I know when they need to be out for. I know I need to sit down for X period of time. Especially if you're writing, you're not doing the bulk writing and you're doing it all one by one, you'll need to find a time of day where it's right for you to write that stuff. And if you're only doing it once a week or you're doing it twice a week, not enough to form a habit. You will find excuses not to do that. I only have 2 to write, I'll write them tomorrow. When you've got 3, all of a sudden it starts to feel a bit more serious. Like, I need to do this because I'm going to miss my 3. But to your point, Danielle, there's nothing worse than sitting staring at that keyboard, wondering, the hell do I write right now? Because I've got no inspiration. It hasn't come to mind. The good news is over time, like that gets easier. I think that you find the ability to find ideas and be creative around you all the time once you're used to the habit of doing it. Getting in that habit is hard, and you absolutely nailed it. We're not designed to see ourselves on camera. People like me, especially, I mean, face for radio, right? I hate the sound of my voice. I hate the way I look on camera, right? But I have over 800 hours on YouTube on one channel, and I have multiple channels, right? Not because I want to see myself up there. I'm in no way a narcissist, right? I hate seeing myself up there, but I know it works. And I know that the video allows me to look you in the eye, like we're doing right now, 1-to-1, almost like we're in a Teams meeting or a Zoom meeting, and show you how enthusiastic and passionate and genuine I am without any AI, without any manipulation, because it can't be faked. Genuine conversations can't be faked. And when you do that, you show up in such an authentic and genuine way that people start to trust you. And if there's enough content out there consistently over time, people begin to remember you. You become top of mind. They believe in what you're saying. They align with the idea being they align with 90% of everything that you're going to say to them, right? Like that's your people. That is who you're aiming at. They believe in almost the same things you do, but you're going to challenge them on one or two things to think differently. And when they see you as an expert, they get real problems psychologically from the fact that they see you as an expert who can't be wrong, but then they disagree with you. That means either I'm wrong that I believe they're an expert, or I'm wrong in my belief. The two can't be true. I need to figure out which one it is. And all of a sudden their cognitive dissonance causes them to question what's going on and have a conversation with you, because actually I might be wrong here. I believe they're an expert, but they disagree with me on something. I want to find out why. I want to dig a bit deeper on that. I'm curious now. Whereas if you just tell someone they're wrong outright and they haven't gotten familiar with you and haven't built up that trust, hold on, Frank, I'm going to do things my way. You can go and ride your horse into the sunset, and I'm going to carry on doing what I do anyway, because you can't be right. I'm the expert here. And that's the way your audience see it. So I love the fact that you can sway people's views over time in the right way, but only, to your point, Danielle, if you come at it from a place of value add and service. I think that is the bit that people struggle most with, getting their mindset into that.
One of the things that you said that I just want to underline and expand on is when you that consistently showing up. So let's say 3 times a week, right, is the goal. The secret is that nobody has to know that you created 3 times a week. But at the beginning, when you're feeling clunky or you're feeling awkward, just showing up and doing it, even if it's not something that you publish, is going to help you take the steps that you need to be showing up and to doing that. So if you just say, I'm showing up to practice this habit and to do this and get in this rhythm, and not like I need to post this, just even reframing it in your head is really fantastic. And it takes some of the pressure off, because you want to get it right, or you want to get it perfect. So if you just say, I may throw this away or I may delete this, but I'm going to at least show up and flex that muscle of sitting down and thinking through what is something that could be valuable to my audience and how can I do it, chances are it's going to be better than you think it is. But if you remove that expectation and the outcome that you're trying to achieve with it, I think that makes a big difference. And I think right in line with that, you said something about doing it when you are best and when you are fresh, right? So I am fresh in the morning, and I also know of myself that I get a ton of energy and inspiration from being with other people. So I had, just like all of us, even as a marketer, I had been had been rolling on my to-do list for a couple of weeks. I'll be completely honest, a couple of weeks. Last week, I drove about an hour from my house and went to a networking event with a group of women. And I spent almost the entire drive home voice noting into my phone so that I did not forget. I was so inspired by the conversation that we had. It was not a content creation day. And in fact, I actually rearranged my schedule that day because I was in the zone of creating this content, because I was so inspired. And so I think sometimes we got to loosen up a little bit and allow ourselves that kind of flexibility, that if you feel so inspired and you're on a roll thinking about this kind of thing, don't let it go. Don't write it down thinking you'll remember, because when you come back to it, it will not be the same, I promise. But I created, gosh, I came home from that and I probably scheduled, these weren't video posts, but they will come into video posts. But I mean, I probably scheduled 6 posts in maybe 10 minutes. I mean, full content, like creating the thing, putting it in and scheduling. And it's because I did it when I was fresh, and I just leaned into the fact that I was very inspired, had all this energy from this event. And I just rolled with it. So can we talk for a second? I know you and I have had this conversation about like, okay, so yeah, so the camera turns on. What is it that I'm talking about? And so following this conversation, or this thought that I had from the inspiration with this group of women, one of the things that I shared with them, because we were talking about LinkedIn specifically, one of the things that I shared with them is that when you, instead of sitting down thinking, I need to create content or I need to record this video, and we're talking about creating value, I love to sit at the end of the week or at the end of the day and reflect back on what I've accomplished and the conversations that I've had. And from there, that forms the content that I create. So if I had an advisory session with someone and they had 5 questions, most of those questions are probably relevant to someone else. So when I sit down and turn my camera on to record a video, I'm going to think about that conversation. I'm going to address the questions that that person asked me in this advisory session, because it's going to be valuable for other people. Or maybe I answered a whole bunch of questions one week about a new product or service that I launched. And the questions over and over, that's content that you can record a video about, is answering those questions. And what that does for you is not only fills your content pipeline, but when you get those questions in the future, you can say, I actually recorded a video about this. You can find it on my YouTube channel. When they go to your YouTube channel and watch that specific video, YouTube's going to prompt them to watch another video and another video and another video. And you want them to binge consume your content, because that is how they get to know you. And then they like you. And then they trust you, and then they're ready to exchange money for a product or service that you have to offer. That know, like, and trust factor is really powerful. And again, that's why video is the way to do that, because you can push them to wherever the video is, and then they can just continue and to consume over and over.
YouTube is such an underrated tool for B2B marketing, because everybody views it from the wrong perspective. People wrongly assume that YouTube is where you build villages in Minecraft, like my son does, or what he watches, right? That is a big element of it. There is lots of game streaming. There are lots of young people on there doing their jam. It's a wonderful place, and that's fine. But what people don't see is that B2B marketers, B2B business owners are absolutely killing it on YouTube, not in numbers, not in hundreds of thousands of downloads and views and impressions and click-throughs and all the other metrics that make my head blow. I hate metrics, sorry. You don't find many marketers that say that, but strategy's Danielle's thing. I'm the doer, right? That's why we gel together. I don't do strategy. And what's beautiful about YouTube is it's the second largest search engine in the world. Right, might get overtaken by TikTok at some point, but based on what's going on in America, maybe not. I don't know. Let's not comment on all of that. But YouTube is a place where your content is evergreen. So if you name, and I've just had, as we're talking, I've just had a YouTube marketer. Thank you very much. I know my channel is rubbish, and I appreciate all of your efforts to screenshot it and draw rectangles around it and send me them. By the way, everybody who's a business owner, everybody gets those marketers. You can buy the tool vidIQ that does all that for you, and you can investigate it all yourself without paying for them. Thank you very much for that, but no, you're going in the recycle bin. But the purpose of YouTube videos is, if you title your video by the question that you're answering, or the question that your audience might be asking in order to want to look at the content you've created, then you've created a video frequently asked questions page. And that's really, really valuable, because your audience don't want to have to come to you to ask all of their questions. If they're considering you for your services, they want to do their research themselves. Like, I know as a British person, this is very, very dominant for me, right? When I go into a shop, I don't want to be sold to. I want to be left alone in my own little world, and I will struggle to find the damn product myself. And if I want to come and ask you for the product, I will come and ask you for the product. But if you've got your signage right, I'll be able to find it myself because I'm reasonably intelligent. Some might say, not everyone, but some. However, for some reason online, we think that everybody needs to have our products and services rammed down their throats because we need to tell them all about it. And because who else is doing advertising? What we don't see is when we create content and we direct people to things like our YouTube page, it allows people to do research at their own pace. Now, your LinkedIn page, for example, when you create content there, gone, it's off into the ether, 7 days later, nobody will ever see it again unless they're really looking hard for it. But YouTube, people are going there and they're searching for answers to problems. They're looking for people who do things like what you do, and they want people to tell them a way of doing things without paying for it, first and foremost. Newsflash, most of the time, it's great and it is possible, but most people aren't going to do it. But the person who gives them the best advice on how to do it themselves, that will stick in their head. And that's the person that they'll come back to down the line. But if you're not on YouTube, you're missing a huge trick because that content, I've got a client who released a video 2.5 years ago. He's had 40 hits a day, every damn day ever since. It can't be shifted from the top of his content. Didn't get a lot of hits, got a couple of hundred at the time, and it's had 40 hits a day ever since. By far the best performing piece of content. We've tried to recreate it. We don't know the secrets to it. I'm still working on it. But that's a sort of, it's a puddle of water with a volume to it. It's the surface area of the puddle, not the depth of the puddle that we're worried about here. For YouTube, it's the surface area. So again, you create the content once, it goes onto your YouTube channel, you put it in a playlist so it's easy organized and easy to navigate. And you don't have to do that again unless things change. If you need to update your advice or processes or whatever changes. So that, again, is another really nice way of being efficient with your time. Just create it once, put it on YouTube, get it out there, and then sit back and watch it happen. And you might not see the results straight away, but over time, people, especially if it's trending, and again, you can look to see what's trending as an idea for what you record your content. Because if it's trending on YouTube, it's probably trending on LinkedIn as well. So there's lots of nice ways that you can make your life simple and talk about what we can create the content about in order to do that. And Danielle, you mentioned confidence with getting on camera, because I know that's a huge blocker for a lot of people. I'm not an expert. Nobody wants to hear from me. I've got a face for radio. When I press the record button, I panic. What's some advice that you would give people that are in those sort of shoes? How can they make life easy for themselves?
Yeah. The couple of the biggest things I would say, if you don't want to see yourself on camera, then don't look at yourself on camera. They make in the world, oh man, usually I have them so handy. Here we go. They make 4x6 sticky notes. Okay. These will perfectly cover up your smartphone screen. You know what else they do? You can write on them. So as you think about the content you want to talk about, write your talking points on this sticky note to help you guide through. People are nervous about just rambling and going on bunny trails. Sometimes that's okay, and that's appropriate. But if you say, okay, in 20 minutes, I want to answer 2 frequently asked questions that I get in my business, and I want to tell 1 client success story, being mindful of confidentiality and all that stuff. 3 things. So you just bullet those 3 things on your sticky note and even have a couple of key talking points under each of those. And then you stick that right on your camera, your phone, right? Or even on your computer, depending on how you're recording. So then you're not looking at yourself. You've got it right in front of you though, so it looks like you're looking at the camera, and you have some talking points to keep you on track. So that's the biggest thing. Second thing that I would point out, actually, there's probably 3 rolled into that one, but the next thing is figure out what your non-negotiables are. So when you're going to record, I work with a lot of women, and there's a lot of reasons, right? The lighting's not good. My hair looks crazy today. Whatever the case is, you are allowed 3 non-negotiables when it's time for you to record content. You could come up with 47 excuses for why you can't record, but you're allowed 3 non-negotiables. And when you get ready to sit down and record content, if those 3 non-negotiables are met, your hair looks fine, you have the right color lipstick today, and it's not pouring down rain outside, you are recording the content, okay? Here's the thing that I think people get so tripped up and they're nervous about messing up, right? You're the expert in your industry, in your field. And you have to remember that. You are the expert. If you fumble on your words, you just pause and you move on, you fix it. And if it's going to be a video that'll be edited, then it'll just get edited out. And if it doesn't, then you just pause and you just like, oops, I can't tell you how many videos I've done that in. Oops, I'm getting so excited. I'm talking too quickly and I'm tripping over my words. Nobody's going to say I'm not doing business with that woman because of, and if they do, then they're not my kind of people anyway. I don't want to do business with. You are the expert in your field. Just show up and be the expert that you are, and people are going to feel that. So those, I think, are the 2 or 3 biggest things from a tactical and practical perspective that make people nervous. One more thing. There's an appearance, right? You want to look good, right? You want to show up and look good on camera. So a lot of times I'll find that people will wear something different or they'll style their hair differently and it's not natural to them. And so they fidget. Or if they're, sometimes I'll stand on videos, right? I feel like my posture is better when I'm standing. I can lean in, I can move around a little bit. If they're standing and they're in heels, they're uncomfortable and they're wobbling if that's something they do every day. So do whatever it is, whether it's your environment, what you're wearing, how you're feeling, make sure it's just normally you and not someone that you are normally, because that will also come across in the video that something's a little bit off, that doesn't feel authentic to you.
So, and there's an interesting intersection there. So I'm ADHD, right? Self-assessed. I've not gone the formal route, but I'm pretty confident I'm way up there on in the percentiles, with maybe a good sprinkling of autism thrown in over the top, right? Probably never guess if you speak to me unless I told you, like I just have, but that's how it is. And I tend to work with quite a lot of clients who are also somewhere on that spectrum. They're either freely admitted to me beforehand, or they realize as they're talking to me and I mention how ADHD I am, and they go away and get assessed, and they usually are. So, other things that you can do to make yourself feel comfortable. I have a fidget toy, and I sit and fidget. Because if I don't, I sit and play with my pen, and my pen clicks, and I break my pen, and pens start to cost a lot of money. Fidget toys generally don't cost a lot of money. They're much cheaper. So stop breaking your pen, biting your pen, biting your pencil, whatever it is that your stim or your fidget is, if that's you. And another thing is, these things here are great, brilliant. If you know how to talk into them, if you have practice with them, if you've bought a decent enough one, and if you can sit still long enough to talk into it in exactly the right way so your volume doesn't change. I can't. If you've watched me in this video, you'll have seen I start slouching, I lean over to one side, I sit up straight, I lean in when I get excited, I sit back when I don't. I can't help it. That's who I am. It's natural. I don't make no apologies for it. So what I use is one of these bad boys, a wireless Go 2 Rode microphone, and it transmits to a transmitter over there. It connected in the back of the computer. Honestly, the sound quality is far better than any of these that I've used. Granted, I've not used the proper podcast ones because I refuse to pay for all the expensive equipment. And I don't have a desk space for it. But these, I can take them out and about. I can walk down the street with them. I can put what's called a dead cat, the fluffy thing on the top. I can put one of those on, and you can barely hear the outside noise, whether it's windy, whether it's raining, cars coming past, doesn't matter. But the important thing is, as I move about, my volume stays constant. And for all we're talking about video, you'd be surprised. Your eyes lie to you all the time. They'll smooth over little things, as long as they're not annoying. They'll smooth over little things and ignore them. Your ears will not forgive a damn thing. This is the second time I've recorded this audio, this video, right? Hands on heart, because the first time my system picked up the wrong microphone. For a start, it was nowhere near me. And so the voice on it was echoey, tinny, picking up background noise because I wasn't close enough. And honestly, I tried all sorts of things to get rid of that noise so that we could just use the recording that we had. And it just wasn't good enough. And I'm not prepared to put something out there that doesn't have that standard on audio. And that's really surprising for somebody who's a video person to say, but it's the biggest difference that I made to video recordings. And do you know what? There's also an easy in here for people. If you've got a microphone and you're really, really, really squeamish about video, right? You can start off with recording audio. And you can use a tool. So I use Descript. There's lots of other tools out there. Descript is my favorite. There's pros and cons to that, and other tools. There's Opus. there's feed.io, there's all sorts of different things out there. Descript, I find, is the best value for money, but what it allows you to do quite easily is create what's called an audiogram. So you might put up a headshot photo of yourself on the screen with a waveform around that. Maybe it's a waveform at the bottom and the animated captions coming up along the middle of the video. And that's your video. It's not you actually performing what you've just talked about. It's just the audio. And maybe that's an easy way for people to ease themselves into it. I see a headshot on there because people still need to associate your business with you. And that's why for me, that's a non-negotiable on those audiograms, because they still need to look you in the eye in some way, shape or form and connect with you. And if they can't do that, you're missing a trick. They need to associate you and your personality with the business, not your logo, not your lovely color scheme, not your lovely graphic design in the background. You as a business owner, because that is the difference between you and Jim Bob down the road who offers the same service. If they don't know Jim Bob, but they know you and he offers the same service, your service is a little bit more expensive. Guess what? People will pay more to work with somebody who they know and trust. And that way you can avoid that race to the bottom. I refuse to get engaged in a race to the bottom with anyone. They start talking that way, I'm off, I'm done. Bye-bye. That for me is the beauty of video content, because it connects you directly with your audience. Danielle, are there any kind of tools or frameworks or ideas that people can pinch from you to help them with planning their content out and getting to a point where they've gone from thinking about things through to actually starting to do things? What do you advise people in that way?
Yeah, there are a couple of things, Paul, that you can think of when you're like, okay, how do I sit down and plan this out, right? I've got the time blocked off. Frequently asked questions are a really easy thing to do. Talking about the work that you've been doing recently or a new product or service that you're launching, those are also easy things for you to talk about. You're just documenting what you've been up to. I think that when it comes down to it, I think the sticky note is really helpful, whether you need it to cover yourself or not. From a visual perspective, I definitely recommend outlining people think in threes. Okay, so let's think about 3 topics you could cover in a 20-minute video, and then give 3 sub talking points for each of those topics. If you feel like you need a script, there's a tool called Big View that you could script out. You could script out exactly what you want to say, and it'll prompt you like a teleprompter on the screen, and you can read that. I don't script well. The more I try to script, the more I screw up, because I'm like, oh, I didn't say it the way I was supposed to say it. And so I just have my talking points to make sure that I'm covering the big things for the people on the other side of my video, and I move on. I will not watch my videos afterwards. There's no point. Did I cover my 3 talking points? Yes. Do I feel like I was generally my authentic, genuine self? Yeah. Okay. I don't have time to sit here and watch my videos and critique them. On with the next thing. So I want to encourage people to just let this be a really natural and organic thing. And I feel like I just said that and everybody's going, yeah, okay, right. But just show up, provide the value, hit your talking points, do it consistently like we've said. And then once you upload it, Paul, I would love to share like the process for that, right? So like you're just talking, my side of things is easy. You're just talking about the things in your business. Once you have this 20-minute video, can we recap for people, like what is it that they're doing to make sure that they can make the most out of that video?
There's a real danger here that people get lost in what I'm about to say. I'm going to talk you through my process, which is end to end, and it's everything, right? And I'm not here to say that you need to replicate all of what I'm about to tell you, right? This is my business. This is what I do for a living. I've honed this over 5 years, full time working on this as a work of passion, and I enjoy doing it, right? So for me, it ticks all of my boxes. I'm a big doer. There's a process behind it. It's very simple. I can replicate it. I can scale it, and I can become a cookie cutter almost for each client, although everybody wants something slightly different. We start with a 20-minute video. For me, my weapon of choice, as I've said, is Descript. And I'll put the links for that in the comments below. So if anybody wants to explore that, right, it's $30 a month. It doesn't break the bank. It also includes a recording studio, because they bought a company called Squadcast, which is what we're recording this in right now. And what that allows you to do is to get in the cloud and record something in the cloud at high quality. So if your broadband is rubbish, don't worry about it. It will stream it to the cloud over a period of time after you've finished recording, and it'll stream the high definition version of whatever you're doing. It allows you to get on with a guest like Danielle, or multiple guests if you have them, and you all get a separate video stream. It'll import that directly into Descript for you without any messing up. So you don't have to worry about lining up video with audio and getting everything all right place so that my lips are synced with my audio and all the rest of the jazz. But on the off chance that you are doing something, say in a podcast studio or out in the real world where you've got multiple cameras, my one advice here, clap when you're ready to start working, right? So press the record button, clap, and use that noise as the sync. So wherever you put it into, whatever tool, it'll always have a waveform at the bottom. Shows you the sound that's come through from all the channels. And if you line that up, everything else is so much easier. I wish I'd learned that 2 years before I did, because lining up videos is the most non-fun activity anyone has ever been tasked with in the history of mankind, other than working in the tax office. You've got your video into Descript. What Descript does really nicely is it transcribes that video automatically. It also identifies who the different speakers are automatically. You just got to name them. So you can go from a green name up here, which might be Paul's stuff, to a blue name down here, which is Danielle's conversation. You can see the conversation really nicely, clearly on the screen, alongside your video, and with a time bar at the bottom that allows you to see where you're creating cuts in the video and things. But really, it's just like editing your video with a Microsoft Word editor or Google Documents, right? Very similar. When you delete the sentence, it deletes the video and the audio. When you move the sentence, it moves the video and the audio. And especially for somebody like me who's neurodiverse, when I try and edit visually, it's really, really painful, really, really hard to do. And it's not efficient. It doesn't make sense. But what I can do is I can scan through the text really quickly and identifying mistakes, edits, errors, bits where I've gone off track very quickly. And I can do editing with practice granted, I could do editing for a 35, 40 minute video in about 35, 40 minutes, right? It takes practice, but it becomes to that point of efficiency. What I then recommend people to do, like you can create chapters in there, and a chapter would become a reel in the real world, right? So you turn in your entire video into chapters, chunks, and you can export in bulk all of those chapters, and it'll name them for you even, right? It'll give them all a name that you would probably title your YouTube video of the same name. Also gives you an inspiration as to what the post's about without even viewing the video content. Really easy to then duplicate that whole, what they call a composition, and turn it from landscape formats or widescreen 16:9 into vertical format for something like TikTok. You reposition the videos, get everything lined up. You can save that as a template. So next time you come and do it, you just literally click a button. Dead easy. And you could do that for Square as well. It's got loads and loads of really advanced features that are very simple to use, like Studio Sound, which is like an AI mastering of the sound. It makes everything sound like it's much more professionally recorded in a podcast studio, for example, where everybody sounds like they're on a radio microphone and it's all really proper. It sounds really good, and it's amazing what it can filter out. So, dogs barking in the background, sirens going, babies crying, all these things happen to me all the time. Nobody ever hears it because it's been taken out. One click. I don't do any setup with it. One click. Another click, and it can remove filler words. So ums, ers, things that might make you sound less confident than you are. Now, I'm not a big fan of removing all of them. You can remove them all at once. I'm not a big fan of removing all of them because it adds to your authentic nature, right? People make mistakes. That's normal. It's okay. It's cool. Don't worry about it. But you can also you can shorten word gaps. So where I might ask a question of Danielle, it might take her 5 seconds to think about the answer and come back to me. We can shorten that down and really easily crossfade over the top. So all the editing tasks, I'm not going to tell you about all the features. That's some of them. Highlight reels. You swap between speakers and cut away to see Danielle's reaction while I'm talking. All of that's really, really easily. But then you can export all of those in the different formats. You can also then use that to create the audiograms, like I described before. So you have the captions coming across the screen, you have the waveform on the bottom, the picture on the screen. Again, save it as a template. You can replicate it next time. You can do that for landscape. You can do it for Square. You might have a couple of different color variations. So you might have like a dark version and a light version. Depends on what your color preferences are. And the beauty of all of that is you've created a load of content that you're still not finished, because you can publish direct to YouTube from there. And it takes minutes, not downloading it, waiting an hour for the video to export and then re-upload it to YouTube, taking up all the family's bandwidth. Nobody can watch Netflix, nobody can watch Amazon Prime because you're hogging everything. It does it on their own servers, so they're linked, and it'll do it in about 5 minutes, right? It's really, really good. You can upload it to your podcast platform. If you've got a podcast, it'll upload it straight to there. And then you've got a transcript. Now, the transcript is beautiful because you can export that as a document and you can plug it into ChatGPT or whatever your choice of AI is and do some phenomenal things with it. Like, find me all the quotes that were inspirational, educational, polarizing, opinion creating, curiosity creating, and output them in a table. Output them in a table by type of quote. And honestly, I was of the opinion when I first did this, I thought it's going to find nothing. I'll never say anything of consequence. I'm boring. And it came back with all these things that I'd said, and I was like, I like that. I really like that. I'm going to use that. And it's me. I said it naturally. I didn't pause for it. I didn't have to find somebody else's quote and make it my own. It's just my conversations. It sounds like me. Take that table, plug it into Canva. There's a bulk create option in Canva. If you create a template, plug that into the template in the bulk create app. It'll create one version of it for each of the columns. It'll create a version of it. You just have to hook the text up and it'll output them all. It takes me 15 seconds to create those quotes. No word of a lie. 15 seconds. Once you've got the template set up, dead easy. Go back, check them. It's AI. It makes mistakes with the format and you need to do it yourself at some point. Landscape format, square format. Guess what? You can also animate in Canva. So animate each page, have the words appear onto the screen and export them as a GIF or a movie, whichever you prefer. And you know what? If you put that GIF onto your LinkedIn and put it in your featured section, it animates in your featured section. It's really nice. It looks really cool. But you have to post it to do that. So you've got all of that and you still haven't gotten around to your outputs from ChatGPT or whatever yet. You can create a table for your headers for all of the names of your reels. Why would you do that? Well, you can put it into Canva and create thumbnails. Bulk create them. Got the templates set up exactly like your quotes. You can create the thumbnails. You can ask it to create social media post examples. And I'm going to put a finger up and I'm going to say example. Don't release it into the wild unless you've read it and checked it and humanized it. Really good for brand posts, really good for brand profiles, not so good for people posts. Don't post it without checking it. But great inspiration. Give me 10 posts I can create from this content. Okay, here's 10 posts. Brilliant. Copy one a day, put it into your browser, make it sound like you. Add the video that goes with it, or forget about the video that goes with it. You've got a post. Ask it to create blogs, ask it to create newsletter outlines, ask it to create. There's an unlimited number of things that you can do with it. It really depends on what you've got time to do something with. My advice would be, because everybody's head's just exploded, as I've said all of that, I appreciate that's a lot to take in. Pick a couple of things that you really want to do. So it might be, I really want to post in vertical format and landscape format. And I would really like some of the quotes Paul mentioned. Brilliant. Start with that. Then work your way up a bit at a time. When you've gotten used to it, you become more efficient at it. If you feel like it'll help, experiment. That's what I do. Experiment. I'm always trying new things, but I'm conscious that whatever I do has to be efficient, effective, and not take up a lot of time, because I haven't got the time doing this for multiple clients, right? We're somewhere in the region of 20 active clients and we've got 55 clients over the last 2 years, right? I haven't got the time to spend doing all of this all the time. So it has to be efficient. And the same goes for you when you're doing your own content. And the last thing I'd recommend is getting yourself a scheduling platform. And I love Social Bee. So Social Bee is my go-to, but that's probably better for me because I'm an agency. I'm not quite an agency, but we've got a lot of clients and we operate and we need to keep them all individual. For you, I guess on the outside of that, as an individual business owner, you might look at something like Authored Up. Authored Up is a fantastic tool. It's $20 a month. and it'll help you write the posts. It's got grammar checking in there. It's got hashtag collections in there. It's got all the tools to make things simple for you, but you can schedule your posts out in a visual way as well. So for me, I see lots and lots of tools every day, and I really bad shiny object syndrome. I love new tools. I love getting involved with them. My advice would be play about with them by all means. But if you get the feeling that it's taking you far longer to produce this than what you would if you didn't use the tool, and you don't see any way that you'd get more efficient over time, then don't use it. Move back to keep it simple, minimum tech stack as you can, but every tool must have its place. And if it doesn't deliver on value, get rid of it. And categorically over time, think about every 3 months, think about, is my stack that I'm using to help me do this cost effective, efficient, and is it helping me? Because if it's not doing all three of those things, then you need to get rid of it, find something else. There's always alternatives, and they're popping up all the time. You'd be surprised what's out there if you go and look. But just make sure that you're not following shiny object syndrome too much, because guilty all the time. Love it. I love a new tool. But it's generally a 3 o'clock in the morning job, and it's not conducive to good behavior the next day.
Paul, I think that's one of the things that makes us, from an expert perspective, it's okay. We have shiny object syndrome, and I call that market research for clients, right? I have tried every social media scheduling tool out there, and I know what I recommend for my clients. And occasionally I'll deviate. I have one that I prefer. Occasionally I'll deviate depending on the type of business and where they need to be scheduling their social posts. But I've tried all of them so my clients don't have to. I've read all the books so my clients don't have to. And that is, again, from a strategy perspective, that's why I exist in the world, is to consume all of that content and distill it down and make it really custom for my clients. So I think I don't totally want to speak for you, but I would venture to guess that if somebody were to message you on LinkedIn and say, I've got a question about this, Paul, can you answer it? You'd probably respond and give them a little bit of feedback and insight, right? Based on your experience. And the same thing for me. I love questions, because if someone is asking me that question, 10 more people are behind them not asking that question. And so I can use that as an incredible opportunity to teach, turn it into part of a 20-minute video that then I'm going to use this whole process to, right? Again, to provide that value, to set myself up as the expert and make things easier for my target audience. And I think that is why we all went into business, right? Because we love whatever it is that our topic is, and we want to help other people with it. And I think that I love that we've been able to have this conversation to share our insights into how, these are our specific parts of the marketing and sales space. We get to share this experience that we have with other people so that they get to go promote their business too.
And that's it. I'm a big believer that if you can do it yourself, you should be doing it yourself. Right? My clients know when it's time to come and talk to me. It's not hard, right? Like, they either don't want to do it, they have no intentions of doing it themselves, or they've been doing it themselves and they've run out of time and they need to get rid of something off their plate, and I'm that option. Very different perspective for you, Danielle, is they've probably tried everything themselves, or they think they have, had limited or no success with it, and have no idea why any of it's not working. And it's nice to talk to someone who comes at it from the angle of what's right, both for the outputs that you want to achieve, but also from the ability that you have to commit to things. I think that's the bit that a lot of marketing strategists overlook is, well, you want to achieve these things here. Well, you need to do all of these things here. And all of a sudden it's insurmountable. What we're talking about here is, okay, you might want to achieve this, but let's be realistic here. Got this amount of time to allocate to it. You're going to see these sorts of results. You want to get to that, you need to be doing this. And that's not you right now. Let's just have real conversations about marketing with people. I think that's fair, right? The same way that the people who watch us, I'd like to think that you have real conversations with your clients. Wow, that was
absolutely.
That was a rocket burst hour of, like, my brain's empty now. Like, I've got nothing. I don't even
so much insight just happened.
Conversations the rest of the night. Yeah, if you've enjoyed this, thank you very much for coming along and spending the time watching it. Whether you watched it in Reels or you've watched the full video, awesome. Thank you very much for doing that. And if you put any of the content strategies into place today that we've discussed, I'd love to hear from you. I'm sure Danielle will be the same. You can reach me, paul@javelincontent.com. Guess what? Yeah, it's www.javelincontent.com. You guessed that bit right, sorry. And Danielle, how can people reach you if they're interested to hear more?
Yeah, I love putting out content on LinkedIn. So I'm Danielle Bornowski on LinkedIn. And if you want to just get straight to my inbox, I'm Danielle at DQB, like Dairy Queen Boy, dqbstrategies.com.
Perfect. Thanks very much for your time, Danielle. It's been great having you on the episode. And I'll speak to you in the not too distant future.